Shout out Coach Katie. That was fun last night. Big volleyball fan. Fire away.
All right, we'll take a couple questions on Zoom up here on the screen, and then we'll do questions for the room. Go ahead, Rich. Rich Garcella.
Hey, Andy. How are you?
Great.
Can you describe the way Nick and Katron are running the football at this time?
Describe it.
Yeah.
Really good. Really good. I think it's been good and been documented, a little bit. And, Nick, we kind of had some bumps and bruises. You can see him bouncing back here and kind of back at full strength. And to see both of those guys running the ball the way that they want to, I think the last game that we played is really good, visual evidence of what that is. Katron being a really physical runner, and Nick's speed, have both of those things having the ability to take, games over. It's impressive. So, huge weapon for us to have going into this part of the year. I'm really pleased with how they've gone about their business for sure.
Let's go to Tyler Donahue and then Mark Wogenrich.
Thank you, Andy. We appreciate the time. Just wanted to kind of touch base on your quarterback room. It's evolved a bit. James told us not to ask you some specific questions, but just moving forward, what's your confidence level and what you can accomplish at the top of the depth chart beyond Drew with number 2, whether it's Jackson or Ethan Grunkemeyer? And can you kind of talk us through where Jackson needs to get, where you would be comfortable with him getting into a game this late in the year?
Well, I know Coach addressed this, I think, already, but, Jackson coming off of, just being cleared, but I'm really excited about him. His progress has been really, really impressive, and Ethan's done a fantastic job as well. But, obviously having Drew as a leader in that room is a huge deal for us. The way he goes about his business is awesome for anybody of any age to observe and see.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, Andy, a follow-up on that. How does Bo's departure affect the way you prepare for SMU?
Well, I would tell you, I think I've said this many times in here about the importance of utilizing the personnel that you have. And I think I've actually said if putting 10 linemen on the field is a way for us to score a touchdown, we'll do it. And that's always going to be that way. So it's about, the players that we have and utilizing them and the packages that we need to cause stress to the defense, and I'm very blessed as the offensive coordinator to have the group of players that we have on the offensive side of the ball, because we can be even more diverse, right, than what we've seen so far. So, it's just it's a spoke in the wheel of what we're doing, that kind of package, and so it'll be replaced with another kind of spoke. So I'm excited about what the guys that we have in the locker room and what they can do for us, for sure. It's going to be good.
Questions in the room, way in the back. T. Frank.
Andy, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. I like your sweater.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Question for you. The last game against Oregon, and to a certain degree, your next opponent, SMU, have an ability to switch fronts between an odd front and an even front. Just curious, from a perspective of planning and execution, is it tempting to kind of replay the same game plan or aspects of it? And how do you go about being successful against similar ideas in a short period of time?
Well, I think what's really interesting about what you're asked is that's kind of become college football nowadays. I think everyone on the defense side of the ball requires some multiplicity, and so you see it. We approach every game individually, and so perhaps what you're asking a little bit about is do you copy and paste game plans and things like that? At the end of the day, you need to be doing what you feel comfortable doing and what you're good at. And so it always starts with us internally and what we do well, and then you think about what they do. But you're absolutely right. They have the ability to slide in on an odd front and even fronts with some diversity in the back half. But that's college football nowadays. It really, really is. And so, we saw it all spring and fall camp from our defense. A diverse defense that we play against on the daily there, and then every opponent this year has been that way too. So it really isn't different in terms of scheme, right? You know what I mean? And we have to evolve throughout the course of the season. I think you've heard me say this before. Matter of fact, I think I said it about a year ago. It's not just who you are at the beginning of the season. It's how you evolve towards the end of the season as well. And so, and that's where we're at. And every week you have to evolve, and every week you have to look at your pieces of the puzzle and put it together and how that matches up against them. Fundamentally for us, it all starts with our ability to what we trained our players on throughout spring and fall camp, and did we use our time wisely in those windows of preparation? And to this date, I would say that we have been. So I'm really pleased with how they've picked up the game plans on a weekly basis, and any tweaks or wrinkles that we've added that they've picked up really, really well.
In the middle, John.
Andy, you obviously tweeted that you were planning on being here for 2025. What went into that decision, and what made you want to stay at Penn State as opposed to going after a head coaching job?
It's a good question. Just what's going on here, right? I enjoy, first and foremost, the players that I get to coach on a daily basis. Working with Coach Franklin's been awesome, and the offensive staff that I work with is elite. So just really easy decision, quite candidly.
In the back, Andrew.
Coach over here. There's been a lot of talk about the weather and how it benefits you guys over a team from Dallas, but against Maryland, you fumbled 4 times. One, do you think the weather is actually your advantage? And two, is there anything you guys do specifically to prepare for the cold?
You practice in it, right? And so it just starts there. You do those things, and you've seen us do wet ball drills and stuff like that before. That's really a little bit different than the cold. So it's about knowing that we prepare in this stuff all the time, and we're fortunate enough to have a home game. So we absolutely think it's an advantage, right? So because we prepare in it all the time. It's hard to mimic what you see outside right now today, for sure. So I do think it's an advantage, yes.
Right here in the middle, Audrey.
Hey, Andy, over here. There we go. What do you kind of think of the season that Drew Aller's had to this point, and what are maybe those conversations like between you and him in the last couple of weeks, where it's, hey, obviously you have stuff going on with the coaching carousel, he's got a decision to make. How does that maybe unfold, and what do you think he's done thus far?
Well, most important thing to comment on is that you've never lost sight of just what everyone's number one goal, and that's just to get better every day. And so all those conversations are, what do we got to do today to get better? And I mean that. I know you might think it's coach talk or cliche to stand up here, or just some BS you would say in a press conference, but we really live that in this program. And the discussions are always about what to do to get better. And when you talk about future and this and that, it's just, what are we doing to win today's practice? And James does a fantastic job of organizing practice in a way that it's competitive, so that if you're distracted or you're not there, like, it'll show up. As a coach, it'll show up as a player. And it's been so rewarding to watch him handle what it is being the quarterback at Penn State in the national playoffs, future speculation, all these kind of things, but just to handle it so mature and block out all the noise and just get better every day. He's really, really impressive. He has an elite ability to handle things like a professional at the age of 20 or 21 or however old he is. It's really pretty uncommon. It really is. It's impressive.
Over here in the back left, Allie.
Hey, how are you?
Fantastic.
You talked about the evolution that you want to see throughout the season. When you think about your performances against playoff caliber teams, Ohio State, then Oregon, what did you like in those 2 big games this season in terms of, hey, we corrected this in the Big Ten championship, or how do you look at those 2 side by side?
Well, I think you look at the total body of work, and not to sound like a broken record, but continuing to evaluate what has been working, what hasn't been working, why didn't it work, you know what I mean? If something wasn't executed right, why was it? Did we not get enough reps in practice? Did we ask the wrong guy to do it? Was it a crappy play call? It's all those kind of things that you have to do and evaluate after you win or you lose. And I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I mean, you could win a game by 50 and you could lose a game by 50. And you have to have the same process afterwards. When you're committed to the process, sometimes when you're not playing to your ability, you could win by 50 points still, depending on who you're playing. And so you really have to look inward after every game and say to yourself, here's what we need to do better at, and here's what we're doing well. And then kind of be a little bit of a fortune teller and try to figure out what does that look like the next week and what does it look like the next week after that, to your point and the question about the evolution. So it's about constant reflection after every game, not just ones that you win and not just ones that you lose. But you can look at the losses and those sting a little bit more, so it's hard not to look a little harder at some of the things that we're talking about and reflect on them. But then you have to look at, hey, what was the same situation or same scenario we played this other team? Well, that didn't work there either. So, that's a bad situation to be in, right? Or it did. All right, well, why? And so to have that internal dialogue with staff and players about what does that look like to move forward, to evolve, and have to be willing to evolve. It's kind of funny, me and Coach O'Brien, we were talking a week or two ago. It's like, yeah, I really appreciate that every week it's like a new week. It is like a new week. You know what I mean? It's never just we're going to slap this on the call sheet and we're just going to go practice. Like, no, there's really critical reflection of who we're playing and why it's working and why it's not. And that's our process. That's what we do. And so we're not going to negotiate it. We're not going to change it. It's been refined through the years. James has been a head coach for a long time. I've been an offensive coordinator for a long time. And we know it works. And so you can't negotiate it. I'm not saying you don't tweak it and things like that, but it really starts fundamentally with the ability to look in the mirror and reflect on what's going well and what's not, and why it is and why it isn't. And when you look at things from a macro level, the decisions you make in the spring have a huge impact on what actually happens when games are playing in the fall. And so that's why all these things are a huge deal. Like every phase of the football season is a big deal.
Over here on the right, Daniel.
Andy, how are you doing today?
Great. Stash is looking good, man.
Thank you.
Yep.
When you look at Ethan Grunkemeyer at quarterback, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from coaches and teammates on how he's progressed this year. Where would you identify the areas where he has improved? And also as a true freshman who has not played yet, if he is forced into action, where would be your comfort level at this point in the year?
He's like a lot of the guys that we've talked about, his commitment to wanting to get better every day is also admirable. His understanding of what's going on offensively is really improved. That's very evident with his comfort in calling plays and reciting them, and Coach O'Brien does a fantastic job with developing those guys. And James has done a great job of always, development is a huge part of this program, is the words you guys hear him say all the time. He just doesn't say that. Like we the way we practice, the things that we do, it forces players who maybe didn't play in a game to get meaningful reps throughout practice in the week. So his growth, like many other people in his class, has been very steep throughout the course of the year. So a ton of comfort with where he has developed as a football player. A ton.
In the front, Bob.
Hey, Andy, how you doing? Right here. How are you?
Can we talk about the visor for a second?
We talked about it at the start of the year.
I know, and it's still here.
Still haven't gotten there. I have not gotten there.
I respect the commitment, though. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure it really exists at this point, honestly. I wanted to ask you about one of the larger humans that you coach, Tyler Warren. What has it been like to coach somebody like Tyler for all that he's done this year? When did you kind of first know maybe that he might be a football unicorn of sorts? And is there a memory or two that you think is going to stick with you about coaching a guy like that?
He's an elite person. He's an elite player. He's a unicorn in what you said is accurate. I think that's a great term to use. What makes it special is that you don't have to spend a lot of time investing in some of the things you see him do. Whatever people talk about, the one that he snapped and then caught, right? Whatever. What was that? USC. Like in the past, with most players, there's a lot of consternation as a coach about someone who can actually snap the ball. With him, it's like, hey, go snap the ball. Okay. You know what I mean? And he just does it. Hey, you're going to catch a snap. Hey, you're going to handle the snap count. Okay. You know what I mean? Like you just have confidence that he can do those things because he's just so well-rounded, right? There's not a huge investment that needs to be made. So, because at the end of the day, all the exotic things that we talk about doing and the creativity we want to have on offense and the things that we want to do to put stress on the defense, you have to quantify how much stress that's going to put on you. Like how much you have to invest in practicing those things. So he's a unicorn because we don't have to practice those things nearly as much as you probably should for the normal college football player. So that makes him special. So that is really cool and unique to be able to go through that with him. Our imagination is basically our limitation when working with him. And moving forward, that's kind of how it'll be as well. Do I have a fun memory of him? Or did you ask a memory of him or a football memory? It can be both. Okay, great. Because it involves Theo Johnson as well. So like a year ago, okay, I got to sing to the team. And I was going to employ some reinforcements. And I knew Theo. I had a history with Theo. And because I kind of had a tight end background, I knew Theo and his family, I was singing, as you should right now this time of year, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, take the mic and put it in Theo's mouth for him to go, reindeer, win the crowd, right, win your freedom. He box. Well, I do it again to tie. Same thing. Left me up there hanging all by myself. No help, no nothing. So that I have as a memory of Ty Warren and will forever. Now, we've since made amends, obviously, but him and Theo Johnson left me hanging in front of the whole team. I was trying to get the Christmas spirit going, and those two guys just embarrassed me in front of the whole group. That's one of my first memories of Ty Warren. But he's an elite person. Shout out Ty Warren.
We got time for one more in the front here. Neil.
I'm not going to ask you to sing.
Thank you. I'll gladly. It's the holiday spirit. Let's go. I'm not going. Come on, don't call my bluff.
This is a follow-up from Allie's question about what you dissected and learned from. You guys were right there, in those couple games where you did lose. I'm wondering what you learned from them. It seemed like you started going to Tyler at the goal line maybe a little bit more after the Ohio State game. I was curious about that. And also, can you take us back to the Oregon game, what your thinking was? Did you feel you guys got away from the run toward the end there because you ran the ball so well?
Well, no, yeah. There's a two-part question. This is kind of funny how you got time for one more question, and there's three questions already laced into the question. So I'm trying to rehash all of the questions. You always are reflecting, you know what I mean, on the packages and what's the shelf life of certain things, right? And so, meaning how many times can you call it before it expires? How many times can you go to the well, so to speak? And it's a fine line when you're calling plays to if you go to the well one too many times or not. Usually by the time, the only way you can answer that is by really going to the well one too many times, or then maybe not enough, right? And so as a play caller, you have to kind of try to figure out, do you go back and keep calling it until it's stopped? Or do you go back and call it whatever, one more time or two more times and move on? That's what has to happen, and there's no great answer. The only great answer is when it didn't work, right? Because if you didn't call it again, you don't know. So they're reflecting on that, knowing that, you know what I mean, about those specific things. And I don't know that we got back to the Oregon game. I don't know that we got away from it. It's so far ago, by the way, in my mind. I'm so on to SMU, but I'm trying to reflect back to it. I'm proud of the way those guys ran the ball. I know at the end of the game, as you're coming back, you need to get a chunk play in there. You know what I'm saying? And so we had to be able to try to get the ball down the field at some point in that drive. You know what I mean? Towards the end there as it went. But I don't even remember hardly all the scenarios, to be honest with you. So I don't know if I'm answering your questions there a little bit, but yeah, you're always thinking about reflecting, trying to figure out if you went to the well one too many times or not. And then you want to run the ball as much as you can until you can't, but there's some situations that dictate you got to throw it.
I apologize for looking back, but I think this is the first window we've had with you since.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it has been that long. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Thanks, Andy.
Well, happy holidays, everybody. Thank you. We'll see ya. Reindeer.